Good afternoon, everybody. Hope you had great lunch. Uh, our speaker now, it's a pleasure for me to introduce our next speaker, that is Mr. Lux Rao, who is the country manager, cloud consulting at HP. Lux, in his current role at HP, helps customers adopt cloud computing and conduct several innovative workshops to guide enterprises and SMEs to make the transition to the cloud. He has over 20 years of experience in multifarious roles, spanning IT hardware and software, marketing, sales, channel management, product support, pre sales, competency development, and customer services in organizations such as IBM, Canon, and Xerox. He is regular speaker at cloud computing conferences and has chaired, moderated several conferences including Introp, Cloud Summit 2010, Cloud Summit 2011, War India Cloud Conferences, Channel Summits, IET SaaS and Cloud Conferences, IIM EPGP Industry Leader Engagement Program, etc. And it's a pleasure having Lux here. He'll be talking on the topic public, private, or hybrid cloud. What is the right strategy to adopt? Lux, I request you to come on stage and take over. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming in. And thanks a lot, actually, Durga, for that elaborate introduction. It's always actually a tough call to, do this session, post-lunch. I'll try and make it lively. I'm not going to actually bore you with a lot of detailing and stuff like that. In about 20 minutes, let's try and understand what it is all about. And I'll leave the floor open, actually, for a question and answer. I want it to be very, very interactive. Cloud today means actually a lot of things to a lot of people. Everybody talks about cloud. And increasingly, it is becoming actually evident that cloud per se is not one cloud. The topic for today is actually about what is your cloud. What is it that actually appeals to you, to your organization as cloud? Trust the vendors to actually come up with so many explanations. Sometimes it could get mind-boggling. Public cloud, private cloud, managed private cloud, virtual cloud, community cloud, cluster cloud, you name it. There's so many of them. At the end of the day, actually, cloud is all about, leveraging shared resources. How are you going to actually, manage this is really what the cloud story is all about. And trust me, ladies and gentlemen, there isn't actually one story here. There isn't actually, one fit over here. You're talking about actually something that works for you. And I would like to talk today about actually, what is it that, works for you as an organization, and what is it that actually, what is it that you need to be considering when you're taking the decision of which cloud you'll have to choose. Some statistics before we actually jump straight in. What are the benefits of cloud? This is like preaching to the choir. Everybody talks about cloud benefits and so on. We've captured it over here in terms of sheer metrics. 50% faster application development, 32% higher agility end-to-end, 18% ability to respond faster to market. There's something called time to value actually in industry today. One of the biggest enablers actually as far as cloud is concerned today is about the helping organizations actually, with the time to market. What I mean by time to market is actually how quickly can you launch a new product to the market. Gone are the days when actually, you had the luxury of, taking months or sometimes actually years to do a launch. Today, you're talking about launch, which is actually, maybe a couple of months or 3 months max. Some of the best organizations globally in manufacturing can get a product from concept to clunk that is actually in the market in something like about 115, 120 days. And it is believed that for every $1 billion of new revenues that are actually coming in, if you cut down the cycle time by about half of what you're already doing, what happens is you add $60 million in new revenues and $12 million in gross margins actually for every $1 billion of net new sales. And who is in a position to actually do that today? It is actually IT. Cloud barriers, very oft quoted. This is something that I've been seeing over the last 3 years, multiple conferences, engagements, and stuff like that. We talk about security. But there's an interesting new entrant in the barrier. This is it. What's transformation? This actually is emerging over the last year or so. For those organizations which took their initial foray into cloud, they realized that cloud is not a piece of cake. Depending upon what their agenda was for migrating to cloud or going into cloud, they felt that cloud is actually a force fit in a current IT environment. Maybe it is not. That's actually the transformation challenge. And transformation challenge cuts across not only technology, but it also cuts across the organizational framework and the setup of the organization. Compliance and governance concerns, we actually hear about it all the time. Does cloud actually apply to the law of the land? If I'm actually hosting the data over here within the country, is it actually is it legal? If I host it out of some other country, will I be able to actually take recourse to law in case things go bad? And things actually tend to go bad sometimes in business. And looking at the strategy bit, who is actually setting the strategy today? The CTO, the CEO, and very important thing is that the CEO is actually becoming an integral part of setting strategy for the cloud. The obvious reasons are actually business benefits. Cloud actually enables an organization with 3 key benefits. First one is actually the agility. You can quickly get to market, time to value, and like the example that I actually talked about. That's time to value for you. The second one is actually an obvious oft-quoted one, which is about the commercial benefit, the ROI benefit. Cloud means actually lesser costs. Not always it is actually lesser cost. That's exactly the reason why it's imperative that you actually choose the right cloud for yourself. Okay? So and the third benefit is about the scale. If you want to scale massively, if you're actually going in for mergers and acquisitions and stuff like that, cloud is actually one way you can have a basic common framework, because any acquisition that actually goes sour can disrupt the whole organization, both the acquiring company and the acquired company. So when you're looking at actually scale, integration, and stuff like that, cloud is actually big play. And on top of all of that, the creamy layer about cloud is innovation. Cloud enables innovation big time. Geographical boundaries no longer are a constraint for people to work along with each other and come up with phenomenal products that can actually disrupt the way businesses actually buy services and products. This is global surveys. Last year, 49% people actually spent about less than $500,000 on cloud computing. 43% of the people actually spend between $500,000 to $1 million, and 8% actually spent more than $1 million. These are actually people who bought cloud computing or actually infrastructure. So when I actually break it down, you will see the significant movement actually happening over here. So this is becoming actually a major thing now. Over 50% of the people are spending more than $500,000 on IT purchases. Non-IT sanction. This is a very interesting thing. When we actually surveyed CIOs, 46% of the CIOs actually said they know that there is a non-IT sanctioned cloud running. What do we mean by that? We always thought that IT is actually the mandate for the IT department, possibly, but no longer so. It's not really such a hunky-dory world anymore for CIOs anymore. Today, businesses are actually going straight on and purchasing cloud services because of the convenience of purchasing a cloud service. The problem is actually they purchase the service, and then what happens next? They're not able to actually bring back whatever they've hosted wherever they have, and then they go to IT for recourse. So we are actually seeing problems of what we call as the shadow IT emerging in a very big way. Shadow IT is here, and CIOs are paranoid about it. The worst part is this one. 18% did not even know that it was happening. So what could we actually say about the security readiness of that organization? Compromise actually could be happening for the IP of the company. By the year 2020, you'll see the mix of how cloud is actually coming in. 56%, and this is for all the legacy systems actually included. So 56% actually is traditional, 25% private cloud, 19% public cloud. And with that, actually, I'm also getting into jargons and stuff like that. But bear with me as I actually unravel this private-public cloud business as we go ahead. This is a chart. Don't bother about actually reading all of this stuff over here. This talks about various technology stuff. We've seen tectonic shifts in technologies over the last 40 years. In the age of mainframe, it was very less complex. Moved into a client-server kind of a scenario, which has actually been, it has served a very good, it is provided as a good service over the last few years or last few decades. Then we moved into the internet world, which was disruptive as it is. The big four of mobile, social, big data, and cloud has really actually brought about a change in the way we consume services or we consume IT. Going ahead, we see that these are the trends that will actually influence the IT for every organization. And much as we would like to think of them as independent pillars, they're all actually intertwined, cloud being the basic fundamental block. Talk about big data, cloud is there. Talk about, that's basically analytics and stuff like that. By the way, just actually a nugget of information for you is that the largest analytics private cloud in the world is Autonomy. That's 50 petabytes of data there. They didn't actually design it. This is an HP company now, but when they set about this analytics system, they never thought that actually they will be laying claim for being the world's largest private cloud. But without cloud, that service is non-existent. It is a private cloud, it's a shared services scenario, and that's really how the world is actually going. Some interesting statistics over here. Every minute you'll actually see 98,000 tweets happening. Okay, every minute actually 208,000 people are actually playing 1 minute of Angry Birds. Think about it. 5 years ago, nothing was there. This is actually disruptive. Exactly the same way, 3 years ago, standing in a conference like this, I was actually talking to some CIOs, and CIOs say, cloud, no way, not in India, no chance at all. Today, when I actually talk about that, they say 70 to 80% of the people will say, yes, we are considering, it's just a matter of time. It's not a question of if or not, it's a question of when and how. It's changed dramatically. It just took 3 years, actually. We don't have the luxury of time anymore because actually competitive forces and business benefits are actually pushing technology adoption in a very, very big way. So what are the implications for IT? The situation for an IT manager or a CIO today is actually balancing the tightrope. The reality for cloud services is basically simplicity and agility is overriding the risk. What we mean is, this whole thing about security and stuff like that is actually quickly being overcome by the simplicity and the agility it offers to business. The rationalization has started happening. There are two things that are actually happening. The first thing is the rationalization for real threat as opposed to perceived threat. People know that actually there are a large number of cloud companies. In fact, actually one CIO put it across very, very articulately to me by saying that people actually trust net banking, which is about the same way the cloud works. They don't trust with their data. I mean, there's actually a lot of irony in that, right? So essentially what we're talking about over here is that cloud is here to stay. The perceived threat is actually now giving way to realistic assessment of threat and so on. The second thing that's actually happening, and very, very well, is the fact that a lot of innovation is happening around cloud security. So 10 years ago, the only security stuff that was there was about antivirus and so on. Today, you are talking about actually 5 different types of security: peripheral security, endpoint security, transaction security, encryption, you name it. That's become a very large practice in itself. So these are things that are actually ensuring that the movement to cloud is actually event free. Regulatory and compliance is trying to keep pace. Nowhere in the world actually anyone can say regulatory and compliance have been defined for the cloud. It's evolving. And the third element, and this makes the CIO's job very, very difficult because the decision that's taken today might come back to actually bite them later on. Because if you decide to host the data out of the country, and then the law of the land actually stipulates that all data for transactions within the country have to be within the country. And there, I'm not an expert on law. There's a session tomorrow. You can actually attend that. So these are some of the things that are coming in. So they are those things which actually the CIO has to look at. The role and relationships of IT organizations are fundamentally changing. So much so that the job profiles are changing. The kind of skill sets that are needed today, they are actually changing. So from a product mindset, from a support mindset, it's moving to what is called as a service mindset, because IT is offering service to internal users or external users, but it is offering service. The IT imperative is actually about agility without compromise. Let me just walk you through this quickly. There's a need to engineer the future. Right here is a very uncomplicated world, traditional IT. I know I'm talking about today's IT as traditional IT. At the end of the day, any organization has got IT for managing the information through applications which ride on infrastructure, period. There's nothing more to IT than that. You have infrastructure, you have applications, and you have information that helps the organization gain benefits out of it. These are dedicated, physical, homogeneous data centers, things like that, which are already there, pervasive everywhere. Whether it's actually a managed data center or within the organization, it's all there. The evolving current state today is very interesting. Traditional with the same thing. Private cloud does the same thing. Managed cloud does the same thing. Public cloud does the same thing. And what do you think is actually happening? Huge amount of conundrum and confusion. Because everything is actually delivering the same thing, which is information for your organization to work the way it wants to and make business benefits. But through disparate architectures, technology, management, and security. All of them are actually independent of each other. The aspiration, therefore, is to go into something which is a converged cloud. Converged cloud works this way. Irrespective of whether it's traditional, private, managed, or public cloud, all of these just become the delivery arms. You have a single pane of glass, and that pane is P-A-N-E and not a pane. It's a single pane of glass to managing the entire IT assets within the company. Talk about managing your assets, talk about security, talk about actually deployment, talk about recovery, whether it's actually compute provision, compute deprovision. Everything will be through a plane of glass, and all of these will actually become arms. What I'm effectively saying here, ladies and gentlemen, is that the future of IT is about, what will work best for you. So if you're looking at a scenario where 40 people in finance department are actually working with a software that works for them beautifully. They're working on it for the last 10, 12 years. They're very happy with it, and some of you, I can see some of you smiling because you can relate to this in your own organizations. They don't want it to be disrupted at all. No problem. Let them do whatever it is. It's a finite set of people, and you don't have to move that to the cloud. Let it be traditional. So the future state is a harmonious coexistence of stuff like this, which is an open converged architecture, management, and security, where you will see these as actually deployment for depending upon your application. So what it means is that there isn't actually one solution. You might have to actually decide what works for you best for what application, then decide which way to go. I think I've actually thrown a problem over here. How do we decide that? What do we do? That's something that I would like to actually talk about next. Every enterprise is on a journey today. Pardon the bad graphics. I think it's actually the application is a little older, and I have worked on a later application, and that's the reason why I think it's a little bad. I'll read it for you. Traditional IT was about standardization, consolidation, virtualization, and automation. And you'd be wondering, what about actually all of those vendors who came and said, hey, virtualization equals cloud? Really, ladies and gentlemen, virtualization is not cloud. Virtualization is one step towards cloud. So if you think that virtualization equals cloud, it just gave you an optimized approach to IT. That's it. Gave you some real savings in the short term and period. It isn't cloud. If you're talking about cloud, you're actually talking about a journey which works this way. You're talking about a private cloud, which is a cloud-enabled data center. So you have a data center within your setup. You cloud-enable it. You build actually an infrastructure as a service cloud, and in that you have a dev test cloud and some packaged applications that run out of here. You also have something called the managed cloud. So the difference between a private cloud and a managed cloud, and I have one slide that actually describes extremely well here, but in a very short way I'd like to explain. The difference between a private cloud is this is behind your firewall. This is actually managed by a third party, but then it's dedicated for you. You can walk across to the data center and show what is the infrastructure that's earmarked for you. That's a managed private cloud. This gives you the OpEx advantage. It's fast becoming actually very popular. And then the public cloud as the way we know it. In fact, the understanding of public cloud amongst most of us is that public cloud is this, which is hosted elsewhere, access through the internet, and you pay per compute. That is one element of cloud. That's public cloud. Okay. If I look at really if I have to draw a line, the firewall of the organization, I would put it here. Private cloud is behind the firewall. Traditional is actually behind the firewall. Managed cloud is outside the firewall, but it's a dedicated facility, and a public cloud is actually something that people use like any utility. It could be a hotel, it could be actually something like that, where people walk in, one service used by multiple people. It's not dedicated. And how does the transformation journey happen? All along, till now, it was a project-based IT island. Any new application, we can all relate to this. New application meant 6 months of engagement. What did we do? We started scoping the hardware. We started scoping what's the storage. We started actually doing a whole lot of things on a project mode, then went to purchase. Purchase helped us actually purchase it at an appropriate price, and you deploy it. And everybody actually felt like celebrating the day it was deployed. It could be anywhere between 6 weeks for a very nimble-footed organizations to 6 months for a very archaic traditional organization. What's happening today through cloud is that you can have facility, and I'm actually not jesting over here. I'm serious about it. You can get infrastructure provision in less than 24 hours. if you had a cloud setup. Okay? This is huge advantage for businesses. If they want to roll out a campaign, it's like that. 24 hours, they can actually roll out a new campaign. So the focus is shifting from a dedicated infra to a virtualized infra. So if you look at the evolution, a lot of talk happens around virtualization and consolidation over here. These are two things that have, virtualization gave an obvious cost benefit. Then moving into the shared service, the moment it comes into this purple block here is when you can call it a true cloud. That is when infrastructure or software is provided as a service. And when you start doing it in an automated way or a self-service portal, then it is actually true cloud. And then you move into elastic mode where you can provide the same services to different people. Same thing explained with details over here, and I'll actually quickly run through this because I got a time alert. So here, this is a private cloud. This is a hybrid cloud, and I would like to focus a little bit about here. And elastic is actually the public cloud, where you can offer the services to multiple people. And how do you take the decision over here? Traditional IT provides you efficiency and predictability. Managed cloud is similar to traditional IT, but gives you a cloud kind of a scenario managed by someone else, and you get the OpEx advantage. A private cloud is focused on responsiveness. CapEx is controlled by IT, OpEx is dependent on the service by business. A lot of our customers are asking us if they can do a chargeback internally depending upon the consumption. And the public cloud part is the way we know it. It's only OpEx cost. You actually log in and then start consuming it, and you get out of it actually the moment it is done. So how does this model over here talks about in an IT support function, traditional IT, you have the cost going up like that because your support goes up. The number of people are more, your support costs actually go up. And it touches the market sales price when it becomes easier for you to buy it from the market or outsource it. In the case of a cloud model or a cloud service provider, you start with the market sales price, and the number of users increase, your costs keep coming down. So it's famously said that public cloud providers use 1/10 the IT workforce that is needed for an organization that does 1/100th of the output on IT. So essentially what it says here is that the IT support function actually talks about expenses. Business line talks about investments. For IT is an investment for business, whereas when you're a service provider, IT becomes an investment and business is an expense. The marketing and all of that for a public cloud provider is an expense, and IT is an investment. So that's a fundamental change the way you look at it. A busy chart here. What it says here is that traditional IT involves project planning, navigation, creating a project plan, design, build, and deploy. Multiple steps, 6 to 12 weeks. When you're talking about in a cloud, it could be anywhere between 24 hours to a week's time, depending upon the complexity. So there are multiple people involved over here. This is the cloud service provider side, and this is the customer side. So the business units are the buyers or the consumers, and the cloud service provider could be the IT department if it's an internal cloud, or it could actually be the public cloud service provider, it's an external cloud. And typical converged cloud operating model in any organization will look like this. Just a few months from now, you will have a service bus, a layer that actually covers all of the service elements. You have a service portfolio management strategy and governance, which runs across all this. You have managed cloud, traditional IT, and private cloud. And for some horizontal applications, you go with a public cloud. So this is a scenario that's most likely, and what we call as the converged cloud, that's fast emerging as the way to go for IT. So this is a chart that I actually borrowed from IDC. This source is IDC. If you look at in a hybrid model, where do you store what? In a private cloud, that's your enterprise data center the way it is today. A managed private cloud is where you will actually put in or host your ERP application. You see the yellow line here, the faint yellow line. This is your firewall, and this is all outside. The outsourced private cloud is where you would actually put in your legacy applications, and off-premises, these are off-premises, and you have app development testing and stuff like that actually on a third-party hosted operation. So if it's email or actually high-performance computing, you could actually look at a public cloud. If you're looking at third-party hosted operations, you can look at app development and test, legacy applications on your outsourced private cloud, ERP on a managed private cloud. This is just one way. This isn't actually to say that this is the only approach you have. And if you look at the ownership model, very important chart here, the customer managed part of it is here. On-premises legacy private cloud is managed by the customer. Outsourced private cloud, managed private cloud, and outsourced private cloud, these are actually managed by the service providers. So here is the CapEx investment. Who makes the CapEx investments comes in over here. Okay, the summary slide. What's the future of cloud environments? It's about the choice, it's about the confidence, and it is actually about the consistency. The choice is open standards based approach supporting multiple hypervisors. You don't care about actually which hypervisor, you look at actually hypervisors supporting you. You look at the confidence, which is the management and security offering, and you look at consistency, which is a single common architecture. When you are looking at a converged cloud, you look at the choice, confidence, and consistency as actually your key parameters before deciding on which cloud to go for. That will be actually the guiding framework for you as you choose the right cloud story for yourself. The question is, are you ready? And what does it take for you to be ready with this? Technology, this is the one that's most talked about. Management, governance, people, processes, services. Look at the elements that will actually be a part of this. And when you looked at the slide number 3, when we talked about 33% of it is actually the transformation challenge, this is where it is coming from. Cloud is not a technology issue, it's actually all of these things. And for you to actually look at how this works is a small movie that talks about all the issues that are there in a cloud. This is a 1-minute movie, so please bear with me. I've been getting repetitive reminders. So what we're talking about is actually these are some of the issues that are there when you're looking at making your journey to the cloud. And I just gave you a sample of how you can make this journey to the cloud. Durga, do we have 5 minutes for a Q&A or we are done on time? A couple of questions. So with this, yeah, sure. I think we've got a question here. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So across all the models,
it always used to actually mean that someone was not getting the right share of what they're actually eligible for because it was IP at use, particularly around software. So these are evolving now, service provider licensing agreement or actually multiple use screens and stuff like that. If you get a chance, you could Google for actually things like Windows 8 and what are the challenges that are there and how are they managing this multi-screen stuff. These are some things that are evolving. It's a lot better now. It's much, much better. And I would say that except for a couple of vendors, I don't want to name any here, but most of the vendors actually understand, appreciate, and have solutions as far as cloud is concerned, particularly around licensing. Good question.
I have a couple of questions. This is Suvik Sharma from Navisite. Hi. My first question pertains to the data points that you showed in terms of the investments organization are making. So the question is that based really on data of organizations outside India, or is it
global?
It's global.
Yeah.
And how does that reflect when you look at Indian companies?
Yeah.
So that's one question. The second question I had was, as public cloud providers are continuously improving the security that they're able to provide.
Right.
You can do firewalls, IDS, and the whole works now.
Right.
How much does security is of a consideration when somebody is considering private versus public moving forward? And if security starts to blur, what is the other big consideration one should keep in mind?
Both good questions. If I were to map this statistics actually onto India, I would say that this is the year when the early adoption, significant early adoption will happen. In a way, you could call 2012 as actually the watershed or a significant year for adoption for cloud in India. What's happening in Indian enterprises and SMEs today is that you got early adopters, but it's still a very, very insignificant percentage. But given India's propensity to adopt technology in a hockey stick pattern, it could happen that this year we'll see actually mass early adoption, and actually I'm using the word consciously, a significant early adoption. We will see about maybe a significant percentage going into double digits adopting cloud here, a serious cloud. I'm not talking about one application into cloud and such like. And next year we could see early, kind of actually mainstream adoption happening. So that's actually how it is panning out. I think there's a lot of, we are right now in the cusp between awareness and adoption. Okay, that's the answer to the first question. For the second question, any cloud service provider is as vulnerable as an enterprise is, probably more vulnerable, because the attraction of actually disrupting many businesses for threat creators is actually very high when they attack a cloud service provider. So I think what's happening today is, like I said earlier, there's a tremendous amount of research and actually technology inputs going into the creation of security layers, which are actually robust. In a private cloud, it's pretty much the same that it is actually, with the current scenario, which is firewalls and et al. But then the threats are also actually growing significantly. When the lines get blurred, which means you are using it seamlessly in a very, very homogeneous way, heterogeneous delivery, homogeneous way, what's going to happen then is that security should be the least constraint. So it becomes actually an absolute mandate. It does not matter actually where it is. And to add to the confusion or the complexity, you have mobility coming in. So someone actually sitting in an airport accessing your central database could still be a backdoor entry to actually threat creators, possible. So, but those are some things that are actually being addressed. Security has seen actually some fairly significant advancements as far as technology is concerned. The lines are getting blurred, as you rightly pointed out, and it is going to be extremely seamless and transparent as far as users are concerned.
Hi, Lux.
I'm afraid won't be able to take more questions, running out of
Just
time.
one question he started.
Already have a mic in my hand.
Sorry about that.
Hi, I'm Deepak. I have a question.
Hi,
For companies to move from traditional IT to cloud, what kind of capabilities they need to develop, and are they looking at service provider for those capabilities? Do they have the trust from the service provider at that stage?
Okay, you are talking about internal IT. Okay, for internal IT, there's a 5-stage evolution. Okay, and this 5-stage evolution is actually what we have come up with years of experience. The first stage is standardization. Any company that actually wants to go or get into the cloud journey, we call cloud as a journey. It's not a deployment. Notice actually I've been using the word journey continuously because it's a transformation experience. So the first stage is standardization. You're talking about actually some kind of a policy framework that exists. May not be fancy stuff, but something. We're not saying that you should have ITIL framework only. You're saying you need to have a published IT policy. After the standardization layer comes the optimization layer, which talks about virtualization, consolidation, and stuff like that. Most Indian organizations are toying with the second stage today, which is virtualization. Gives you immediate benefits and so on. After these two get done, which is actually optimal IT in traditional setup. That's it. It's optimal IT in a traditional setup. You move on to the next layer, which is actually about providing it as on a catalog, as a service. So internal IT will actually work along with vendors, okay, IT vendors, service providers and stuff like that, and offer a service catalog to their users, okay, on a self-service portal and stuff like that. The fourth stage of evolution is when you can, do differentiated outsourcing. It does not matter where the service is streaming in. One service could actually be coming in from a ISP in Ahmedabad. Another service could actually be coming out of the data center. What you see is actually a very transparent catalog for a user, an internal user, who just goes, clicks, orders for the service. If he's eligible per the IT or the hierarchical policy, it gets provisioned within 24 hours. That's the way it actually works. So that's the fourth stage, differentiated sourcing. And the last stage is very interesting. This is a business opportunity. When you're doing so well in all of these things, you start actually considering offering these services to companies which are smaller and can't make the capex investment that you have done. You offer this as a service. And as you see, it is all evolving. You see actually banks wanting to offer their technology hub or on a cloud model to actually smaller banks which can't actually afford it, or retail giants actually offering it to smaller shops and so on. Then you become a cloud service provider. As a cloud service provider, is a new line of business that was hitherto not existing, and you now have this opportunity to actually leverage from. That's cloud for you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. That was good.
Yeah. Thanks, Lux, for having taken the challenge post-lunch, and a small token of appreciation from the Cloud Connect team.
You.